1310 WIBA and Ask the Experts, joined this morning by Chartered Financial Analyst Tom Plumb. Of course, Tom comes to us from Wisconsin Capital Management. You can learn more about Tom, you can learn more about Wisconsin Capital Management, all on their website, wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. Tom, how you doing this morning?
Well, we're doing good, Sean. As we talked about earlier offline, the stock market looks like it's very, very close, if not hitting an all-time high for the United States stocks and major indices. So, of course, a day like this, probably nobody has any concerns or worries.
No, good day to get out to the lake or out to the golf course, I guess. We can let others worry about markets and other things today, Tom, for sure. Real quick, we're actually going to talk about some of the anxiety some folks may be feeling, which is kind of interesting as we just start this conversation off talking about where the markets have been. But it's there, it's always present. We're going to get some details about what some of those concerns are and get some great insight from you. But Tom, real quick before we get talking on this week's conversation, let's talk a little bit about Wisconsin Capital Management, a little bit about your goals and what's coming up. And of course, I know we've mentioned your son Nathan. You and your son Nathan work together at Wisconsin Capital Management. Let's talk a little bit about that relationship and kind of the bigger picture stuff.
Well, Nathan, when he graduated from college, he worked overseas for a few years, a year in China, a couple of years in Japan. And when he came back, he started to work for another financial organization because we wanted to make sure that, one, he wanted to do this, and two, that he was going to be able to do things on his own. And then basically almost 20 years ago, we started to work together. And then just the last 10 years, we've been working exclusively together. And I've been very fortunate because I'm working with the smartest and best partner that I've had.
That is great. It's great to hear, and I think too about having that close relationship. And I've got to guess that obviously a father-son team. There's also some things that you guys are probably a little more comfortable to discuss, and when it comes to maybe making tough decisions, a little more openness there. I mean, you think about the strength of family and that bond. It really is conducive to being open and honest with each other about really your analysis, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Sean, it certainly is. But the other thing is that we're on the same path, the same mindset. So we don't have to go back and try to kind of coddle each other on how we should be thinking about different aspects of investing or working with clients, because we're on the same philosophical page. So, it's a great thing that way, because often when you get a group of people, you're trying to accommodate each other. You want to work together, and you get 1 + 1 = 1.2 at the most instead of 3 or 4, which it's supposed to.
Just talked this morning with Tom Plumb, certified financial analyst, chartered financial analyst with, of course, Wisconsin Capital Management. You can learn more about Tom, Nathan, and the whole team online. The website, of course, is wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. And Tom has mentioned, of course, the market's always, there's always some news there. And, of course, working in the news industry, 24/7, headlines, whether it's, wars and domestic issues, housing, all that stuff. Folks are obviously very cued in on that, even things like government debt levels and, markets and those type of areas. Let's talk a little bit about just kind of an overview first before we kind of break down and get into some of these areas. A little bit of insight and kind of put some of this stuff into perspective about some of that anxiety and some of the feelings folks may have about that stuff.
Yeah, Sean, it's counterintuitive that when the stock market's hitting an all-time high, you would think that would be because everybody feels happy and excited and feel very favorable about the outlook. But right now, we actually are seeing it, and our clients are coming and talking to us because there's a lot of anxiety out there. They are worried, as you said, about the war, about some of the domestic problems, but also about the affordability, housing affordability in different markets, other essentials, food going up. You're seeing a lot about the government debt levels and what that might mean for the future inflation. And all of that still comes together and the stock market's hitting an all-time high. So People are anxious, and when they're anxious, we often think about a Mark Twain quote where he said, "At times like these, remember, there's always times like these." And that's not a great consolation. I mean, if you were drowning or in debt, or you're feeling very anxious about the world, you don't necessarily want statistics and things like that. But what you can do is you can learn from how people have dealt with the stress, especially the financial stress, which is the business we're in the past, and get some lessons that can help you deal with your stress and build for the future.
We think of some of that wisdom through experience as well, as we talked this morning with chartered financial analyst Tom Plumb. Of course, Tom comes to us from Wisconsin Capital Management, the website wizcap.com. That's wizcap.com, WISCAP.com. You can learn more about Tom and Wisconsin Capital Management, get to know the team there. Great day also. I start that conversation. You want to learn more and get an appointment. Of course, you can learn more all on the website wizcap.com. So, Tom, let's kind of break some of this stuff down. Is as we're talking today, and looking at the great markets, now is probably a good time to be having these conversations, as opposed to when people are in distress and we are hitting rough patches. Now is probably the ideal time to be starting these conversations, isn't it?
Exactly, Sean. You think about it, the best way to avoid a bad outcome is by planning before it actually happens, not reacting to bad news. So right now, if the stock market's hitting an all-time high in many portfolios, because often we say it's not necessarily a stock market, but a market of stocks. So it does depend on what you own. But in general, the financials are pretty favorable right now. And the way that you can reduce your risk and your anxiety in the future is by planning today. So the earlier you start taking advantage of some of the compounding, some of the putting aside money for a rainy day, it's never too late to start that.
And Tom, with that conversation, do we tend to make better decisions during good times? I think of kind of using your analogy earlier about if you're taking on water and then you're thinking you're panicking, trying to the boat's taking on water, panicking. What do we got to do here? As opposed to when you're smooth sailing, maybe have that plan in place for what happens if, and have that done beforehand than trying to work these things out on the fly.
Right. I mean, when the markets are going down, and there's usually following, or there are coincidental with bad news, right? Mm-hmm. And they're emotional, and we read everything's going to pot, and you should be really concerned. And it's very difficult not to make emotional decisions at that time. So the time to make your decisions is when you're not under the most stress, obviously. So that's why we talk about planning, putting aside money, making sure that if you have the potential, use an IRA or a Roth IRA. We say pay the landlord, pay the grocer, but pay yourself. And pay yourself by planning and setting aside money for your financial security in the future.
Hey, what's interesting about that, I know we actually one of our first program, as a matter of fact, folks can go listen back and listen at the iHeartRadio app and other podcast platforms. Just ask for the Wisconsin Capital Management Podcast. Folks can listen back to that. But you talked about the strength of compounding, and we talk about even a small amount. Obviously, the more the better, but even just a little bit here and there, and actually, planning to put a little bit in here, and it pays. It can turn into quite a bit of money if managed properly, can't it?
Exactly, Sean. Yeah, we still call the compounding of total returns the eighth wonder of the world. And it's two factors. It's when you put money in, how much money three factors. Mm-hmm. When you put money in, how much money you put in, and then the compounded return for how long. Mm-hmm. And when you have time working for you, you can build significant financial security.
Tom, looking at some of the show notes, I noticed something that really caught my eye, and something I hadn't thought about. You had said, invest, don't speculate. And I thought, I'd never thought of phrasing it that way. What are you, let's talk about what that exactly means and why that's such an important thing to keep in mind.
Well, when you participate, if you think about the U.S. economy probably grows at least at 4% a year, nominal terms. It's been that way for probably 100 years. And if you participate in that, you're going to benefit with that incredible compounding. But by invest instead of speculate, we mean don't go and buy some product or try to guess what the timing of the market should be, or whether or not you should short an investment or buy things that are fads that are currently really popular. But when you think about it, what's the fundamental driver for that value to grow? You can look at great companies, just think about what made them great and try to find companies that then match that criteria. So, if you think about the things that you use every day, you use your credit cards, well, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, those things, they're there. Those are real companies that are generating cash on a consistent basis. Those types of investments can be the foundation for true investing, not speculating. And by speculating, there's stocks that can be fads by how popular they are today, but you think about what will it take for them to execute in the future consistently. And a lot of companies aren't able to do that for any length of time.
It's interesting when you say that. I feel like sometimes we talk about some of those fad ones are the ones that your neighbor likes to tell you about. Oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing I've had. It's been so great, and then right when you jump in is when all of a sudden it starts going in the red and the really red, and you're like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Talking this morning, of course, with chartered financial analyst Tom Plumb. Of course, Tom comes to us from Wisconsin Capital Management. Their website wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. Great day to learn more about Tom and the team. Also a great day to start that conversation, get to know Tom a little bit more, pick up the phone, give him a call, or, of course, schedule an appointment. Again, all that information available to you online at wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the stock market, some of the numbers there, some of the trends there, also the importance of investing and how that planning pays off with details from Tom. We will do that next as Ask the Experts with Wisconsin Capital Management continues right here on 1310 WIBA. 1310 WIBA, talking this morning with chartered financial analyst Tom Plumb. Of course, Tom comes to us from Wisconsin Capital Management. Their website, I hope you've had a chance to check out the site. If not, I urge you to do that today. Maybe if you're at the office already this morning or on your way in. When you get there, just head on over to wiscap.com. We won't tell the boss. As a matter of fact, the boss will probably be excited that you're taking interest in such an important topic. Again, you can learn more online, wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. And Tom, started this conversation off this week about the markets, where things are right now, looking really, really good. But again, there's still that underlying anxiety, and a lot of folks looking at some of the global things and the news cycle, and there are reasons why people are a little bit on edge. So let's talk about kind of those big news and the trends, and of course the timing of the market. Talking about your sometimes your neighbor that has those great stock tips. You want to be very cautious, don't you?
Shawnee, when we talk about the markets and how they fit in with your overall financial plans, one of the things to remember is that no one consistently makes money timing the markets. So at the same time that the stock market, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ are hitting all-time highs, it causes anxiety. Okay, where can it go from here? It's already at an all-time high. But I tell people, remember, the fact that we're an all-time high means that every other all-time high that caused the same anxiety, you made money from that point, because today it's higher. So you need to understand that even though timing is difficult, planning is great, and participating is what really makes money over time. We talk about long-term investing. We talk about something with our foundation accounts and our profit sharing and pension accounts. We call it the trustee's dilemma. You're going to be balancing today's needs with future needs. because there's always going to be future needs and there's challenges in the future. So the same thing applies to you and I, and the way to do that is through balance. And what we mean by balance isn't just an asset allocation. People need balance in their lives. They need to balance work and family, stress and stress relief, paying your bills, paying yourself. Balance is important in every aspect of your life, and it's very important in setting up your financial security for the future.
You know, we started this week's show talking about a little bit about relationships. About, of course, internally at Wisconsin Capital Management, you get the great blessing of being able to work with your son each and every day, and the importance of that relationship. The relationship with when it comes to your investments, having a good relationship with your advisors and your analysts, that's a very important one as well. Let's talk about a little bit about developing that comfort to talking, as a client talking with you, Tom, and others. There is a real relationship that develops. This is really important stuff, not just for your clients, but obviously for you as well, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, Sean. When you talk about addressing all these needs, and obviously we have a financial service company, but whoever, as you're dealing with these different decisions, and if you're uncomfortable talking to somebody, find a financial planner or a financial advisor that's reputable, that gives you advice. We prefer people who don't get paid by directing you to a certain type of investment through commissions. We'd rather see someone who's fee-based. But basically, you need to find someone who can give you the advice for your personal situation. You may have a situation with your children, your parents, whatever, but you need to address on how these markets and how these different types of investments can help you create distance between you and chaos. My wife was a private pilot for many years.
Oh.
And as you could imagine, the riskiest time is when you're closest to the ground.
Yeah.
Because if something goes wrong, you don't have the ability to fix the situation very quickly. But if you happen to be, 2,000, 3,000 feet above the ground and you get a little bump, you have a margin of error. So it's really important for people to start to figure out how they're going to get enough financial security that they can take care of these bumps that we're all going to go through.
Really good perspective. And Tom, one thing too that just popped into my head as you were talking there about understanding how financial advisors are going to be paid. Is that a fair question? Like for somebody that has an interview with you, I mean, is that something that they should be asking? Is saying, Tom, how exactly money? We all when we offer a service, we do work for somebody. Obviously, we're all going to get paid for that. Is that a fair question to be asking a potential advisor?
Definitely, Sean. If you are working with someone and they won't tell you how they're getting paid, so that you can, in your own heart, feel that I understand if there's any potential conflict of interest, but I can also see are my interests and your interests aligned. That is so important for building that trust relationship and making sure that the future is beneficial for both you and your financial advisor.
And then before we wrap this morning, Tom, I want to ask you about having that conversation. I know one of the things, and that was great. I was really impressed when you and I initially even had our first sit down meeting, and just how open and friendly you were. It's important to have that good relationship, and I sometimes feel like it sounds weird, but you kind of get a feeling for people when you get a chance to meet face to face or have that conversation. I know that's something for folks when it comes to their investments as well, and I know you enjoy doing that, is just getting a chance just to talk with folks, is setting up an appointment and getting to know you, getting to know Nathan, and kind of understanding more about what you do. You love doing that stuff, don't you?
Oh, definitely. And, that is the key, Sean, is that, people tell us how they feel about what their children's capability is, what their relatives are. They want you to understand how things come together for them. And you really can't do a good job giving them personal financial advice unless you know how that financial advice is going to fit into the rest of their lives.
And as we talked this morning with Tom Plumb of Wisconsin Capital Management, love to get to know you. Again, you can learn more about Tom and get to an opportunity to set up an appointment. All you do is head over to the website, wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. Get that conversation going. Tom would love to talk to you, love to get to know you, see how things fit. Again, you can learn more online. The website, wiscap.com. That's WISCAP.com. Chartered financial analyst Tom Plumb. Tom, it's always great chatting with you. Have a fantastic day, and we'll do it all again real soon.
All right, Sean. Thank you very much.
News comes your way next right here on 1310